To directly quote the article, he said, "An industry of that size is no longer a niche." Which leads us to, why does clean green beauty continue to rise despite the haters? Now, what is green clean beauty? Well, no one really knows. There is no central agreed upon definition of clean beauty. Is that where the hate begins? Is that part of the problem? Maybe. You will see as we discuss this that clean green beauty arises from a multitude of factors. And just like any personal belief system, it's difficult to pin down exactly what does and does not make the cut for each individual. No doubt you have seen clean green beauty popping up, and you may recognize some central themes such as free from parabens, artificial fragrance, GMOs, SLS, SLES, gluten, and so on and so forth. It has now become so mainstream that if you're wandering the aisles of Target or Sephora, you're going to find a clean section. I'm fairly certain you have some idea of what I'm talking about. Let's go back to the haters. Who are these haters? Well, for me, what I've noticed is high-profile cosmetic chemists, dermatologists, influencers, and estheticians who all rebuke the notion of green, clean beauty as a preposterous hypothesis. Spending their days and their Instagram posts attempting to educate the misinformed and guide back to the flock the ignorant lot that chooses green, clean beauty. So what is this video about? I'm certainly not trying to convince you to use green, clean beauty. I'm actually not trying to convince you of anything. Rather, what I want to say is that you may not like it. You may not agree. You may want it to die. But that doesn't actually matter because $22 billion speaks for itself. So rather, let's talk about why, despite the haters, this movement is growing. First up, let me explain myself. I was raised by a hippie and a PhD. I am a Gemini. To say that I have a dual nature is an understatement. I have a bachelor's degree in fine art. I took that degree full of emotion and intuition, and I turned directly to science and got my degree in nursing. I have a YouTube channel devoted to green, clean things. Let's be clear though, I have a foot in each camp. I have taken green beauty to task numerous times for fear-mongering, and I have engaged in arguments with industry experts over people that use essential oils. I am a moderate. I am observant. I work tirelessly to control my bias. But I believe that science and intuition do not exist without each other. So if you're interested on how a movement that is supposedly based on misinformation, not science-backed, a bunch of smoke and mirrors. If you're interested in how it's rising to $22 billion, let's chat. Let's examine the origins of the movement. Let's dismantle the idea that people who choose green, clean beauty are stupid. Let's examine how green beauty continues to change the beauty industry. All right, let's jump into the origin story. Now, I am an American, and so I'm going to speak to the rise of green, clean beauty in American culture. This obviously can play out in other countries as well, but I'm going to speak specifically to our culture. There are three things I want to mention. Number one, the First Amendment. Anyone in this country is allowed to say whatever they want, even if you don't agree. Number two, capitalism. What is the right thing to do is never really the question in this country. The objective of industry in this country is what makes the most money. Number three, individualism. Written into our Declaration of Independence is that every person should be granted the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, we all know that has not perfectly played out in our country, but that is definitely the topic for another video. So, moving on, With those key ideas, we have some moments in American history that have become important and significant. Number one, the rise of environmental and pharmaceutical scandals. Who can forget lead in gasoline? How about Flint, Michigan, where they estimate that 9,000 children were exposed to lead in drinking water while authorities did nothing? Number three, Hinckley, California, where chromium impacted the drinking water, and it resulted in a class action lawsuit of $333 million. What about the pharmaceutical fen-phen? I personally have a family friend that passed away from cardiovascular impact related to taking the drug fen-phen. I'm not making any of that up. I've linked below to reputable sites if you want to check out those scandals. Number two, the internet. Now, I had an analog childhood and I'm having a digital adulthood. I can remember the days where the internet didn't exist, where we didn't have Google or PubMed in the palm of our hand. And so obviously the rise of information accessible to us at any given time from any given source has obviously impacted green, clean beauty and the consumer in America. Now, this slurry of stuff gives rise to some central ideas that manifest in green beauty. Number one, skepticism. We, the American people, have been lied to, and a lot of times it's impacted our health. Number two, acknowledgement of multi-sourced wisdom. We have Western medicine in this country, but we are also one of the most diverse countries in the world, and so we have accepted the cultural practices of peoples that have come to America, and we have seen their wisdom and adopted it into our own belief system. Number three, self-reliance. We the people hustle hard, boss babe. If you work hard enough in this country, you can achieve, is what we're told. Number four, loathing of corporations. My generation and below specifically have witnessed some of these large corporations leading astray the American people. And what that has really helped us develop is a trust in wanting to purchase from individuals, smaller corporations, people that are more transparent. Number five, nature-oriented. As we spend more time in front of our computers and with our iPhones and cut off from any of the activities of daily living that give us purpose, we more so now than ever want to return to nature, want to return to things that are impacting our senses. And what does green beauty offer but a beautiful array of plants? Number five, self-awareness. My generation has been told since the time that we were young that if we wanted to change the world, we needed to start with ourselves. And how does that play out but our consumer choices? So now that we've established some central themes, now that we've talked about some of the cultural things that have given rise to green beauty, let's address the grievances of the haters and dispel the idea that people who choose green beauty are stupid. So the haters say that we're misinformed, that we're guilty of fear-mongering, anything that we say. False claims, weak-minded, not science-based, ambiguous. I personally find the conventional beauty community condemning green beauty for misinformation a little like the pot calling the kettle black. I mean, are not most beauty product claims just that, claims? No eye cream is going to remove these lines. And yet, isn't that what they want me to believe if I buy their eye cream? So let's acknowledge that both sides play an equal part in misinformation. Let's also acknowledge that in any movement, there are people on the fringe. Let's also acknowledge that on both sides, there are people who can't really defend their position, but rather parrot back what they have seen or read. It may surprise you that green beauty contains pharmacists, physicists, doctors, lawyers, teachers, nurses, moms, dads, CEOs, independent business people, PhDs in a variety of fields from chemistry to sociology. I'm not making them up. I actually know these people. You want to sit down? I can start listing off their names. Actually, I won't, just to protect their privacy. So let's get back to the idea of skepticism. To be honest, a true scientist is a skeptic. And so people who diverge off from normalized viewpoints have always interested me. Despite being ridiculed, their skepticism is often not completely unfounded. You see, as much as anyone wants to convince you that science is akin to fact, it's not. Science is the practice of observation and the formation of conclusions based on those observations. The scientific principle is clear. You begin with a question, and then you work to disprove it. And at any given time, a new question can arise with new observations and throw those previous observations out the window. And so we delve into the idea that when we talk about the safety of ingredients, we are not always speaking about a direct line. Everyone always wants a direct link. That is not how science works. Science is a tree. It's a branch of information with small interconnected pathways. Evolution happened in small micro steps, not in one big jump. So, with that being said, with skepticism in our mind, and remembering that I am not trying to convince you of everything, what I am trying to do is more explain how really educated men and women can say, I still have safety questions about some of these ingredients. Dare we look at parabens? Dare I open that can of worms? I shall. I'm feeling brave today. In January of 2020, oh wait, is that this month? Yes, it is. The Journal of Applied Toxicology printed a study that says, summarizing the use of single cosmetics containing parabens should not pose a hazard for human health. However, using excessive quantities of cosmetic preparations containing these compounds may lead to the development of unfavorable health outcomes. Due to the real risk of estrogenic effects as a result of exposure to parabens in cosmetics, simultaneous use of many cosmetic products containing these preservatives should be avoided. Well, I feel like the Journal of Applied Toxicology is a reputable source, and they're saying maybe avoid using multiple products with parabens. Seems logical to me that I don't need to fearmonger or scare anyone or say that parabens cause cancer to say that, if someone's offering me an option without it, I think I'll choose that. Okay, continuing with parabens. Here's another one from 2009 from Reproductive Toxicology. The present review discusses evidence that parabens may not be as safe as initially thought and suggests that the interaction between parabens and mitochondrial function in the testes, aka the testicles, may be key in explaining the contribution of parabens for a decrease in reproductive potential. I am raising 3 boys. That's 6 testicles. I would like them to give me some grandchildren should they ever choose to. I think I'll avoid using parabens in their products if there's even a 0.5 percentage point that it could affect their reproductive potential. Is that fear-mongering? Is that misinformation? Do I need a doctor to interpret what that means? Do I need a cosmetic chemist to tell me that reproductive toxicology is misleading me? Now, we know that scientific studies are fallible. Who paid for the study? How was the study conducted? What are the parameters? What is the, margins of significance? So I'm not saying that this is perfect, but what I'm saying is, despite what the haters try to tell you, the true scientific conversation about the safety of some of these ingredients are not over. In fact, many educated men and women are looking to the studies that say there are still questions to be asked about the impact of these ingredients. Why don't we avoid them until we're completely sure that they are safe? And so what I want to ask the haters is, when did being a skeptic equate to being uneducated, misinformed, not science-backed? Let's look at dioxane 1,4, a known carcinogen. We can go straight to a reputable site called the FDA to talk about this chemical. So it's a byproduct of ingredient manufacturing, and it can end up in cosmetic products. And so basically, to be a safe level, they want it to be less than 10 parts per million. Well, the FDA has looked at several cross-sections of products in American history: 81, 97, 2008, 2016, 2018, and they consistently find products that are above the level of 10 parts per million. Now, does this mean that I should tell you that dioxane 1,4 is going to cause cancer? No. What it's saying is that we as a consumer are seeing that in our country, we don't have heavy regulation. And that without heavy regulation, products are slipping through the crack, maybe intentionally, maybe unintentionally, with higher levels than they should have. So should we be cautious? Should we maybe avoid ingredients that produce dioxane 1,4? Sure. Why not, right? Again, I ask, when did being a skeptic equate to being uneducated? Now, let's go to phthalates, known endocrine disruptors. The National Biomonitoring Program, operated by the CDC, says that CDC researchers found measurable levels of many phthalate metabolites in the general population. Now, what does that mean? A lot of people are going to tell you, well, we ingest these things, we absorb these things, and then we excrete them. Okay, so when the CDC does the measure, they find that pretty much all the general population is absorbing and internalizing these products. Now, let's turn to MedPage Today. Okay, that's where I go a lot. I'm a medical professional. I like to go to a medical professional website, and MedPage Today describes them as a trusted and reliable source for clinical and policy coverage that directly affects the lives and practices of healthcare professionals. I would call that a reputable source, would you? All right. If you search phthalates on MedPage Today, you're going to come up with quite a few things that are concerning. Number one, phthalates linked to depressed thyroid function in preschoolers. Okay, again, scientific studies are fallible, but the senior investigator, Pam Factor-Litvik, a PhD of the Mailman School of Public Health at Columbia University in New York City, said, our results contribute to a growing body of literature suggesting that early life exposure to some phthalates may affect endocrine function in children. I would call her a reputable, educated individual. Here's another one. Personal care product exposure tied to girls' early puberty. In a longitudinal cohort study of Hispanic participants, both prenatal and peripubertal exposure to parabens, phthalates, and other endocrine disrupting chemicals found in makeup, soaps were linked to early development in young girls, wrote Kim Harley, PhD of the University of California, Berkeley. I would consider her a respected, reputable source. Now, here's another one. Dad's phthalates may impair IVF embryo quality. The higher the level of phthalates in a man's sperm, the less likely a couple was to have high-quality embryos during an IVF procedure, researchers found. Not only was there an inverse association between quality of blastocytes and the amount of certain types of phthalates in a man's urine, but high concentrations of phthalates also lowered the likelihood of quality transferable embryos during an assisted reproductive cycle. Am I trying to convince you that you should avoid phthalates, or parabens, or dioxane 1,4? Am I trying to fearmonger you? No. But I am saying that educated individuals can read these things and form an opinion that there still may be some safety questions unanswered, and that if we have the option to avoid it, why wouldn't we? Now, let's leave that behind and move on to the idea that green beauty is changing the beauty industry. So as as the high-profile cosmetic chemists, influencers, doctors, estheticians complain about green beauty, here we have raw ingredient manufacturers watching the market, reading Forbes, seeing what brands are asking for, listening to consumers, and they're listening. And green beauty is changing the industry. As you're seeing, raw ingredient manufacturers are becoming more and more transparent every single day about the sourcing and production of the ingredients, which in turn gives brands more authority by being able to be even more transparent, which of course is going to ensure consumer confidence and trust in those brands. And so we're sidestepping all of the people that are complaining, and the industry is flourishing. Before I go, I'm going to give you a rapid fire 10 reasons educated consumers choose green beauty that have nothing to do with chemicals. Number 1, small indie brands. Remember what I said about the loathing of corporations? If you loathe corporations, what's better than a small independent formulator? Number 2, transparency around sourcing and manufacturing. When you've been lied to, you are definitely looking to a small indie brand that can declare confidently and knowledgeably and explain their sourcing of ingredients and why they chose them. Number 3, environmentally conscious. Brands like Osmia Organic plant a tree for every single order that comes through. That's the kind of company I want to support. Number 4, regional sourcing. The brand Live Botanical actually puts the percentage of regionally sourced ingredients on each container of their products. Pretty awesome that we're cutting down fossil fuels to create products when we can regionally source things from right where we live. Herbalist knowledge. Heart of Gold, Ali, the formulator, speaks about her direct, intense communication with the plants she sources. That is the kind of thing that speaks to people who want to return to nature. Women owned and run. Let's look at some of the badass, effective, amazing brands. Mahalo, Leilani Skincare, Honua Skincare, Ranavent. All female owned and run. Number 7, self-acceptance over feeding insecurities. I'm getting older and I can't stop the wrinkles, but brands like Ayuna are saying, let's reorient the conversation and talk about well-aging instead about anti-aging. Number 8, blue beauty. What about our oceans? What about all the plastic packaging that's ending up in our oceans that's releasing phthalates? People like Jeannie Jarneau from Beauty Heroes are taking beauty to the next level and elevating the conversation about what we're doing to our oceans. Number 9, self-care rituals. If you have a problem with your own self-love, then turn to a brand like May Lindstrom that allows you to accept yourself and love yourself through a self-care ritual. Number 10, reducing waste. You might want to hate on the company and brand Lush, but you know what? They were one of the first brands to start using post-consumer resin containers. They also popularized the idea of shampoo bars and lotion bars that came without packaging. So you can critique them all you want, but they were definitely a leader in reducing waste. Another thing that we as individuals, as consumers, want to connect to. This video was long. If you made it to the end, congratulations. This is a video that's been 4 years in the making of things that I want to say. Things that I want to be out there in the world. Like a conversation that I want to have with the haters that says, stop hating and join the conversation and use your knowledge for good. Anyway, thanks for watching. My name's Marie. I'll see you next time. Bye.